biggest luxury crossover ever.
After recalls of everything from toothpaste to toys, the Bush administration announced new steps Tuesday to protect Americans from unsafe products. The recommendations include greater recall power for the Food and Drug Administration, new requirements that drugs and foods be certified before they're shipped to the United States, increased training for inspectors in foreign countries, and increased civil penalties for violators. The president says the goal is to catch tainted goods before they reach the U.S.
We need to do more to ensure that American families have confidence in what they find on our store shelves. They have the right to expect the food they eat, or the medicines they take, or the toys they buy for their children to be safe.
Meanwhile, up on Capitol Hill today, Nancy Nord, the acting chairwoman of the Consumer Product Safety Commission, was getting grilled by members of Congress for her agency's response to the recalls, while she defended her decision to accept 3 free trips paid for by industry groups.
Faced with limited enforcement dollars, Mr. Chairman, I would much rather spend $900 on paying for more testing of toys and more resources at our laboratory than I would on airfare and a hotel to go to present our toy standards at an industry conference.
Colorado Congresswoman DeGette was one of those questioning Nord today. She's introduced and co-sponsored legislation bolstering product safety oversight. Congresswoman DeGette joins us now from Capitol Hill. And thanks for the time. Appreciate it. And first of all, I'd like to get your reaction to the president's proposal today.
I think I'm glad that the president is recognizing that we have a crisis in consumer safety, both with food and consumer products like toys. And I'm glad that they took it seriously. But I would see this report as a good first start, but certainly not a roadmap for legislation. There's a lot of specifics lacking in the report. For example, they say they give the FDA recall authority, but that mandatory recall authority is only after a finding of serious health effects and if the voluntary recall doesn't work. And in addition, it only applies to the FDA products where there's a lot of food, for example, meat, where the food safety agencies that regulate meat don't have any mandatory recall authority. So I think that the intentions are good, but there's a long way to go.
And has this train already left the station? I know that you and other lawmakers up on Capitol Hill have introduced proposals to beef up not only the Consumer Product Safety Commission, but also the FDA. Is that train already going down the track?
Well, we intend to bring up in my committee, Energy and Commerce, for markup in the next week or so, a consumer product bill that includes toys. And of course, we've also introduced robust food safety bills as well. But I think the opportunity is still there to talk to the White House. Certainly, consumer safety is not a partisan issue, and we should be able to work on these issues together.
There have been concerns expressed by Nancy Nord and by members of the Bush administration about some of the proposals, particularly the bill that's already emerged in the with regard to the Consumer Product Safety Commission, some specific changes that they argue go too far and might do more harm than good, specifically this idea about civil penalties for violators. The Senate bill calls for $100 million. I know the House has talked about $10 million. Which do you prefer?
Well, I don't see any problem at all for civil penalties. In some ways, if our toys are not safe, then I think that civil penalties are, or the potential of civil penalties, are what will get the manufacturer's attention and what will make them make the toy safe to begin with. You don't want to have to rely on recalls for toy safety because such a small percentage of the toys that are out there actually get returned with a recall, and so you need the toys to be safe to begin with, and I think civil penalties would help to do that.
There are people out there who say, and the president even mentioned this today at his news conference, you can't inspect everything coming into the United States. Are you and other lawmakers calling for action, for changes here that essentially go too far, unrealistic?
Well, you certainly can't inspect everything that comes into the United States, but I don't think the alternative is that you inspect nothing that comes into the United States. The White House report did acknowledge we need a much more robust system of investigation, and I think the Consumer Product Safety Commission, whose staff has been cut in half since the 1970s and whose budget is way lower than it should be, clearly they need to be beefed up, given the fact that so much of our food and our consumer products like toys are coming from overseas.
The lawmakers today questioning Nancy Nord about those trips she took that were paid for by industry groups. Were you satisfied with the answers that she gave you, specifically that this has been done by others at the CPSC and been approved over the last 20 years?
Well, first of all, the number of trips paid for by private industry in the Consumer Products Commission has skyrocketed in the last 6 years. And there's a real appearance of impropriety in the people regulating the industry then taking trips. And it's not just a trip up to the toy fair in New York. It's very expensive trips around the world. And so I agree with Chairman Nord that they shouldn't have to take money away from inspecting toys to go to present at organizations, but the Consumer Product Safety Commission should have a robust budget to pay for that so they avoid any appearance of impropriety. Other federal agencies have done this, and the Consumer Product Safety Commission needs to do it too. What really disturbed me is Chairman Nord doesn't seem to see even an appearance of impropriety in her predecessor, herself, her employees traveling around on the dime of the very people they're supposed to be regulating.
Let me just ask you finally, there have been some in Congress who have called for Nancy Nord to go, to resign, to step down from that agency. Do you join that call?
I think what Chairman Nord has to do is show a real willingness to make changes at the CPSC, and to date we haven't seen that.
All right, Diana DeGette, Democrat from Colorado, member of the House Energy and Commerce Committee, in fact, the vice chair of that committee. We appreciate you joining us here on Money and Politics.
Great being with you, Peter. Thank you.
When we come back,